Good evening, everybody. Good evening. This is the May 4th Newberg City Council meeting. I call this meeting to order. Rachel, could we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Counselor McBride?
Here.
Counselor Wheatley?
Here.
Counselor Yarnell Holloman?
Here.
Counselor Kilberg?
Here.
Mayor Rossacker?
Here.
Counselor Turgeson?
Here.
And Counselor Carmen is absent.
Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Do we have any public comments? No, nobody's on it? Okay. One of our favorite parts of the meeting is the city manager's narrative report. Will?
Honourable Mayor, I love that you say that every time. I mean, sometimes I think they might not be as gripping as all that, but I do appreciate the sentiment. Thank you, sir. This is the monthly events that took place during April of 2026. In capital engineering, the Cedar Mill Company is nearing substantial completion of the water plant covers. They're down to just the punch list items. That means construction is finished and they're going through looking for any small deficiencies, and that is probably wrapping up within the next week. For River Street project, pre-design efforts have paused while additional public engagement efforts are being made, including the recent formation of an ad hoc committee to assist and guide the design process. Inflow and infiltration, the lateral repairs to those 90 odd laterals are starting off, and they're in the Victoria neighbourhood, and we're going to be working on those. There'll be some clean outs and other things, and that's going to be happening through May to try to reduce I&I coming into that part of the system. Finance, working on the supplemental budget in front of council in June, attended the PAIRS meeting about the expiring PAIRS bond, began work on the master fee schedule coming in front of council in May for information, attending the Tyler Connect conference, which is Tyler being our finance system. So when folks go to the conference, they always learn a lot of interesting tips and tricks, and met with the city manager and waste management on future contract negotiations. City Recorder engaged in training and preparation for the upcoming election, onboarding new committee members and development of work for the River Ad Hoc Committee. And all of the ad hoc members are now onboarded in terms of having their IT profile and having their email working. So I know that's wrapped up. Onboarding our new emergency manager, and received 11,000 as a grant for Historic Preservation Commission to conduct an inventory of mid-century properties around our city. Community development, the Hess Creek Preserve Phase 2 design review was issued. One-time UGB bills, HB 4035 and HB 4082, passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. And there'll be some more UGB related business coming later today. Pre-application was held for a potential apartment complex on the southeast corner of Springbrook and Fernwood Road. Crestview Greens final plat, the subdivision of Crestview Crossing, was approved by the city, including the Jory Street Benjamin Road connection. And the applicant had not yet recorded the final plat as of 4/17. IT events. IT has been working with HR to replace the 2 vacant positions, one which, as you know, happened in a very unfortunate way as we lost a very young person. So far, we have selected Corey Malin, who will start on April 29th as a system administrator, and this person brings 21 years of experience working in municipal IT, which is unusual to have that skill set. Also working to set up our 911 centre to start dispatching for Hubbard Police, which we're doing. And a spike in help tickets have been occurring due to an antivirus program not playing well with our virtual desktops. So they had to figure out why that was happening. Over in Libraryland, the Teen Service Club for Summer Volunteers, grades 6 through 12, is getting started. And as you know, we value this help as it's our busiest time of the year, and it helps register younger kids. So it has a mentoring element as people join summer reading. The Homeschool Family Book Club has been going strong this school year. And the last book club until the fall is May, reading My Father's Dragon. Sign up, available at the children's desk. Library staff are busy attending all elementary school literacy nights so as to prep and prepare for the summer reading program. Each month, library staff's tech help has been occurring in partnership with the Chehalem Senior Centre, a great chance for folks of all ages to learn basic technology with one-on-one help. And the Beverly Cleary Children's Choice Award winner is Giant Squid Pick Your Path by Amy Sato Forrester and Andy Cho Musser. These siblings grew up visiting the Newberg Public Library every week, as it so happens. And here is a picture of the young lad and the author that he became. That's pretty cool. Public Works, some important specific tasks. We flushed 15,000 feet of water main, replaced 248 water meters, videoed 14,980 linear feet of sewer line, conducted many sewer main repairs and lateral services, and our work order numbers are increasing. We just did 1,330 work orders in March. So that is definitely moving in a good direction. The water main service line break on April 21st, 10:30 p.m. A general contractor, Loy Clark Construction, was performing excavation on the southbound lane of Main Street between Hancock and First for Northwest Natural, and they damaged the city's 1-inch water service, and they caused that damage, which required our crews to respond and perform emergency repairs to the main line and the water service until 4 a.m. April the 22nd. And if there are charges connected to that, we will be asking them to pay for those. And here is some pictures of that incident. And here are some more conventional sewer and lateral repairs going on. And I do believe that having broken out into specific teams, each one for each type of utility, that we're going to be moving more efficiently and more effectively going forward. And here's a report from HR. HR collaborated with the city manager to put on the second Lunch and Learn of the year. And HR completed 2 protected leave trainings for supervisors, and Brown & Brown quarterly meetings occurred to review our insurance position. And the Lunch and Learn that we did was welcome to your policies and procedures. So we went over many of the policies and procedures which we've created basically from whole cloth during the last 5 years. It was a good opportunity for staff to ask questions about P&Ps and where they live. April was a busy time in community engagement also. We had project planning for upcoming web content accessibility updates. Now, whereas in many cases our website and other things are already compliant, where we may have to do some extra work is on documents such as PDFs to make sure that those meet the new standards. Because now there are separate style tags that have to be embedded in the PDFs for things such as headers. So that's going to change how we create documents slightly. But in terms of general web accessibility, we're already meeting the standard. And coordinated events for America 250 celebration and geared up for Newberg Old Fashioned, produced flyers and assisted public noticing for 2 major public works events. And those are the ones I mentioned already. I and the administration team were out on the streets putting out leaflets for these events so that people would know when there was going to be service interruptions or people digging up sewer lines. And we also rolled up our sleeves and helped at an Arbor Day celebration hosted by CPRD, and Will and Emily planted 8 trees. So that was a lot of fun. And Detective Sequiros did a drone demonstration at 2 elementary schools for STEAM nights. One young girl missed the demonstration, so of course he doubled back and made a special trip, showing up the next day to do another drone demonstration just for her. It is a night that the schools have focusing on engineering, math, and technical subjects. And Officer Anderson graduated on Friday, April 24th from DPSST Academy, and she will now be entering field training officer time for several months before moving on to solo duty. And here's a picture of the drone demonstration and the graduation. And as you can see, residents' taxpayers' dollars have been hard at work as usual. Any other questions, folks?
So on the water main lines that are flushed, how often do you need to flush them, and how long does the water run before you know that it's flushed out?
So I'm actually going to defer to the Public Works Director to give me specifics on what is the best practice for flushing those lines.
Typically, we monitor the quality of water that we need to report to the EPA, and the residual and mixture quality is always monitored. But also systematically, we have different areas that we isolate and flush out to make sure any kind of deposit and everything gets flushed out. So on top of that, we also monitor. So if some areas that we flush, but the water quality doesn't meet the standards, we go back and flush it again. So constantly monitoring it.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you, sir.
So this is the point for public comments. We have no public comments, so I'm going to close that. And our first item on our agenda is the one-time urban growth boundary expansion. James, welcome to the meeting. Good to see you.
Good evening, everybody. James Dingwall in the planning department. And tonight we're going to be circling back around to the 1537 one-time EGB expansion yet again, and hopefully getting us to a solicitation in the next couple of months. So council goals, still looking at goal 4, implementing a careful and prudent fiscal policy, and then continuous goal E, furthering strategic planning and growth with local taxing districts. Staff's recommendation is to approve resolution number 2026-4023, directing staff to conduct public notice for a formal solicitation for the Senate Bill 1537 one-time urban growth boundary expansion sites, and establishing associated fees, and then provide direction on a couple questions that we have for the solicitation and any other questions that you all have. So some brief background, kind of following up on the discussions that City Council had last fall, and directing staff to prepare the solicitation in August. As we went to do that, there were some questions about the city's eligibility and how the state was defining developed land in the areas of the city, particularly in West Newberg, that have been brought into the urban growth boundary but are not annexed, largely with rural residential, kind of large lot development. And so DLCD has since provided an updated interpretation that developed land includes any rural residential land brought inside the UGB, even if not developed further. So this allows the city to meet the demonstration of need for land, and then also the demonstration of need for affordable housing, which we already met based on the percentage of Newberg residents that are severely rent burdened. One other update since we last spoke is that the legislature passed House Bill 4035. And one of the kind of important changes that applies to Newberg's use of the 1537 is that it increased the maximum urban growth boundary expansion size from 100 acres to 150 acres, while clarifying that 150 acres is of net buildable acres, not net residential acres. So now that also includes the other commercial, recreational, open space, kind of complete community aspects that weren't definitively included before. So acreage went up, includes a little bit more types of uses for the city. So getting back to the process. So before selecting a site, the city must provide public notice that includes the intent to select the site and then each basis under which the city has determined that it qualifies, both for affordable housing and for land. And then the deadline that is at least 45 days after the date of the notice. And that will also be sent to Yamhill County, each special district providing urban services, and DLCD. Following the deadline, the city will review the applications for compliance, provide notice to any property owners if there was a site not applied for, which based on who we've talked to, we don't expect that to be the case, but it's part of the bill. And then conducts a public engagement that includes public comment period, a meeting of the planning commission or city council, notice on the website, and then consultation with any of the special districts and utilities. Similarly to what we also talked about, there's another alternative that the council will evaluate once we get to a final decision point, which is a land exchange. So if none of the sites that are proposed for the expansion meet what you all would like to see for Newberg, you can do a land swap out as well. The city will not be required to select the site, and you guys can reissue the solicitation. Senate Bill 48, which was the update last year, clarified that the city's eligibility is vested when we issued the public notice. So we've established that we're eligible in the resolution here to issue it. If the council decides not to select them, we would go through that process to determine eligibility again in the future. So our proposed timeline for this solicitation is sending out the public notice on June 1st and having it be due 2 months later at the end of July, having the initial city review of the submitted applications for completeness and compliance in August, and then starting the public site selection process in September of October. So the public comment period, and then a city council work session in September, and then a city council public hearing in October. At that point, the applicant would be required to apply for the comprehensive plan amendment and the UGB amendment within 1 year. And then whenever that occurs, that would start step 2, which would be refining the selected site plan. So moving from all the different options to really narrowing in with the developer on what the city is looking to see in the concept plan. We would do the concept plan adoption over winter and spring, and we are proposing that the fees would be due once a site is selected. And so as we'll talk about in a slide or two, some of those fees we're proposing could be refunded, but having the successful applicant pay them upfront to just be that much more involved in the process. And then following the adoption of the concept plan, we would submit it to DLCD for approval. And the only people that could challenge DLCD's decision would be the applicant or the city. This is not a land use decision. So in the packet materials, we included the draft checklist for the application materials, looking at how a site is eligible, what the application requirements would be, and then the elements of the conceptual plan, which is required if the site is larger than 15 net acres and can be not included if less than, and there are some other agreements included. Looking at the fees that staff is proposing, the comprehensive plan text amendment on the current fee schedule, accounting for the next year's cost increases, is 3224, and then the urban growth boundary amendment is 5136. When annexed in the future, there would be the annexation fee of $3,000 plus 286 per acre. And those are kind of some of the estimates based on potential site sizes. So staff's proposal is a site submittal for step one for people submitting their site for council to consider from the list of 5 or 10 that we might get, fee of $214, which mirrors the city's existing miscellaneous type 1 fee. And then once a site is selected by council, if selected, that the refinement fee would be a combination of the comprehensive plan and urban growth boundary fees. That the refinement fee would not be refundable, and then the adoption fee could be refundable if an applicant gets 80% of the way through the process and then decides that it's not going to work out. And our thought process here is that similar to the work that would happen if somebody applied to expand the UGB, we're expecting that a lot of the work that will happen in the refinement process between community development or development engineering will be pretty similar to the work that would happen as part of a UGB amendment. So trying to kind of match those up and then have that, refundable portion if something that doesn't go. So that's staff's proposal. And then we can also answer any questions. I think that is the last slide. Yes. So I can go back to the recommendation or I can answer any questions as well. Robin?
Is this strictly for residential land or can you do industrial?
So the 1537 will be for residential. There are, and kind of the target in the bill being that affordable housing. So it won't all be affordable housing, but there are I think it's 30% of the units will be affordable units. If the site is larger than 15 acres, that's when the bill calls for the complete community concept plan, which would also include recreation, open space, and then they call it kind of small scale commercial, kind of scaled to serve that resident. So kind of the bill kind of envisions that an applicant's proposing kind of a neighborhood that has a little bit of, small retail or services and then parks and open space. But the main intent is residential. So.
I'm sure there's a formula or it's recommended or in statute, but can you talk about where you get the fee numbers?
Yeah, so we took them from the city's existing fee schedule. So our thought was that when applicants submit for the initial site selection over the course of staff review and then kind of completeness, and then for the public, coordination of the public process, that the miscellaneous type 1, so similar to a property line adjustment or code adjustment, seemed proportional to that type of work. And then the urban growth boundary amendment fee and comprehensive plan amendment fees would be applicable when the selected site moves forward. So kind of using those as this. So for that second part, there isn't really a doubling of fees there because they'll kind of serve as what they would.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yeah.
helpful.
Any other questions for Jane? Robin, go ahead.
More. So if we could do up to 150 acres, but if all the applicants have just a few acres, that's we could just do one property, let's say 5 acres. But I think we talked about this. If several different properties wanted to go in on it, didn't we talk about that?
Yeah, so it'll be a limit of 150 acres, but on one site. So the city couldn't pick 10 different sites that are each 15 acres. It has to be one contiguous parcel. It could be several landowners as long as they're all eligible and all and one site. And so I think some of the property owners that we've been engaging with are kind of a conglomeration of multiple. So yes, there is that. And if I can just kind of go back to one of the questions that we meant to ask and then I forgot on that site size, one of the updates that this year's legislative technical update provided was that the city can specify a minimum site size to even be received. And so if council would like to say, you know, we don't want any sites smaller than 50 acres, then you could set that as a threshold. We hadn't set one in the draft solicitation. And as a kind of refresher from last fall, when we had done the mailer to potentially eligible property owners, we received, there were two main interests from large lots. I think it's roughly 60 acres and 100 acres, and then maybe 10 to 15, 10 acre property owners. So there was some interest on that smaller scale, and then it'll be up to the council to determine if you want to entertain those really small options as well as these larger.
Okay, and I definitely should know this, but I'm gonna ask it. So is this a one and done or is this a every so many years?
I think that partially goes down to the legislature, but for this 1537, it is a one and done. So either a one and done of the expansion or a one and done of the land swap.
So then Bill's gonna go down and advocate to keep going on changing land use law?
Yeah. So I think
It's
one
not.
of the bills in Will's report, I think it was 48, is another one-time expansion for, I think it's senior manufactured housing. So the legislature has put out another one-time expansion, but for this one that we are talking about now, it'll be a one and done.
And I just thought I'd throw this out at this moment because the significance here is this concept of, you know, sort of contiguous tracts of land that could be added to the city. But I think it's going to be very important that when council considers its decision, which is one of considerable gravity, that it carefully chooses a tract that's rational to not block the city's industrial growth in some other area, or, you know, to really weigh it up. So this is going to be really interesting as we go through this process.
Robin, go ahead.
Okay, one last question. I think when we talked about this before, it was either Bend or Wilsonville was attempting this. Do you know if they have, or do you have anything to
Yeah,
report on
so
that?
Bend has selected a site. Scott might know more. I know that they've gotten considerable public comment on the site, so I'm not sure if they've actually crossed the finish line, but they have moved from the solicitation phase into the refinement phase, and that have been going through a significant public discourse.
Yeah, that's right, James. And I would just add, I sat on the legislative work group that the initial sponsors of the bill put together because they were finding that the original version was not effective, and cities like ours were, you know, really the intent of the bill was to support us. It wasn't working. And so I'm aware of several other cities that were in a similar position. And in fact, Woodburn's situation is so unique, just being completely landlocked by exclusive farm use land. They had to have special provisions written into the bill to accommodate theirs. So we're not on the, we might be on the cutting edge, but we're not on the bleeding edge because that's Bend. So we've been following them closely, and that's sort of our approach, is to make sure that what we're doing is sound. Yeah.
So this is going to be an interesting experiment. This is a land use by piecemeal application. And, you know, the city for those of you in the audience, the city has nothing to say about land use laws in Oregon. The governor and our legislature has made decisions that say that they know better than we do. And the mobile home park for seniors, what a great idea. That's, if you've ever been in some of our older mobile home parks, you'll notice that they're 40, 50, 60-year-old mobile homes that are lived in with people who are of very low means. We probably have several sites in Newberg that would be adequate for something along those lines. But what they're going to do is like they're doing here, and they're going to say, you can have any parcel you want, as long as it's contiguous to the city, as long as it's not a peninsula. They're going to put so many qualifications on it that it's going to be practically useless. Thank you, Scott, for being part of the legislation directive. I wish that they would listen to folks like you that are on the ground here in Newberg and know Newberg's issues, not Salem. So thank you. This is going to be fun to see if we get anybody that's actually interested. So at this point, does anybody want to make a motion? Please.
I move we approve resolution 2026-4023.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2026-4023. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, James. Are you up next?
I'm still up.
All right. Next is our de-annexation item. Again, something that we've already had some information about in the past, so.
Great. So yes, so we are circling back on an item that we talked about last year, and they were also linked in why this has been held a little bit. So the potential de-annexation was discussed as one of the potential land swap sites if the city chose not to do the one-time expansion. And so the applicant and us and staff were discussing and waiting very patiently for the state to come out with some of the determinations that they have. So now we're restarting the 15 to 37 process, but the applicant is choosing to kind of bring the de-annexation back as well, instead of continuing to wait until that process gets fully resolved. So the intent of this presentation is also that no action is requested, kind of getting information on how council feels about the de-annexation. And then if council indicates, not being terribly supportive, the applicant can still choose to move forward and have the public hearings and go through that process. So no action is requested, and then provide any feedback prior to the public hearing. So background, so we staff held a pre-application meeting regarding potential development of single-family dwellings and a self-storage facility on 3 parcels that were in the pre-application notes that were included in the packet. There's now a 4th, just under 1 acre parcel that's kind of part of that same site that has been brought forward now. The properties were annexed in 2006 through ordinance number 2006-2651, which was also included in the packet. And then the sites are zoned R2 medium density residential in the riverfront sub-district, and contain significant areas of the stream corridor overlay and areas of special flood hazard overlay, which are partly why they're so limited in their development capacity. And so the 4 sites are just over 20 acres, 2.3 acres, 5 acres, and 0.98 acres in size. So here you can see the aerial zoning and utilities. On the zoning map in the middle, it shows the kind of red hash is the flood hazard overlay, and then the lighter blue, which they overlap a fair bit. There's a little bit more of the lighter blue kind of on the eastern side of the parcels is the stream corridor. And then this is an image from the annexation ordinance showing kind of that entire large area that was annexed. The four parcels that are the subject property for this discussion are highlighted in blue down at the bottom there. And you can see that there's now the bypass overlay cutting through the site, the River Run subdivision to the north, and then where it has the proposed CF zone. And then the green on the zoning map is where Ewing Young Park is. So the majority of the annexation from 2006 has been developed. And then there are these kind of constrained leftover parcels that the applicant is discussing today. So the process for the de-annexation is City Council would adopt a resolution initiating the withdrawal from the territory and then hold a public hearing on the withdrawal no later than 30 days after the adoption of the resolution. City Council will then consider an order on the withdrawal and hold a final public hearing on the withdrawal not less than 20 days or more than 50 days after the date of the order. And then by resolution or ordinance would declare the territory detached from the city. So based on the tentative forward-looking calendars, we would expect those to happen in June and July if this moves forward.
James, I have a question real quick.
Yes.
This property is within the Newberg urban renewal area, so shouldn't there also be that part of the process?
So, and well, I think you're a couple slides ahead of me.
Go ahead.
I guess 3 bullets ahead of me. So we would do a referral with Yamhill County prior to the hearing in June. And then the initial discussions with the county indicate that they would revert the site to the previous county zoning. Per the ORS, the withdrawn areas would remain subject to any indebtedness. And then the sites are within the urban renewal area based on initial correspondence from James. They recommend a minor amendment if council and the board choose to renew it. If this moves forward, Scott and I will be submitting further RISs to James. There is some, the city may not have to remove it. There are some provisions for unincorporated county urban renewal. When the city's urban renewal district was approved, the county had approved an unincorporated portion and then conditioned it to go to a vote. And then the city chose to amend the proposed boundary to not have any unincorporated areas. So part of the question would be what approvals would be required by the county if the de-annexed land stays in the urban renewal and now has an unincorporated portion that was not unincorporated when it was approved. So it is in there. We've discussed the process that we would use to remove it, and then are going to be looking for additional guidance from legal on if it would be necessary or up to council's decision whether or not to remove it. And then finally here, we would recommend a condition of approval requiring an agreement regarding that if the city chose to remove the land from the urban growth boundary in the future, either through an urban growth boundary swap or other process, that the property owners could not object to that. The thought process there being is if, 3 single-family houses get developed and, that's the development capacity of the site in the county, that site's unlikely to be developed at urban densities again for a foreseeable future. And so we wouldn't want that to, eat up some of the city's residential capacity in the UGB. And then looking at the urban renewal district again, so the 4 parcels are all in it. And here you can see the 2025 assessed values. There are no projects in the parcels. I think the closest one is in sub-area B, and it's the Esplanade running up to the boundary of one of the parcels. And this is not SB 1537, but it's a slide from that. And we talked about this ahead of time. We would recommend amending the UGB, and this could happen standalone with the 2027, 2028 housing work that Leanne is coordinating, or through a standalone provision. And that is all I have, and I'm happy to answer questions, and so is Mark.
Well, we've enjoyed working with James, and we basically concur with him. And this property, if we could develop it to city standards, we would rather do that, and we would do that in a heartbeat. But because of the constraints with services and the wetlands and the cliffs basically on it, it doesn't make sense to try and develop it as residential at this point, as far as city residential.
I don't think I have a problem with it. The only question I really have is if there's any negative impact that we should be aware of that we're not thinking about with any sort of riverfront master plan or future plan that we have in the works, and will there be any negative consequences that I'm not thinking about right now?
I think as far as the riverfront master plan goes, and included in the packet were, I think, 5 of the alternatives that plan envisioned. I think kind of looking back to where the bypass overlay is, the subdivision that's there now, and then the parkland to the north, the majority of kind of that visioning through the master plan for the site did reach kind of what was planned there. I think there were 2 alternatives that one had some residential and one had some commercial on the slivers kind of carved out that aren't in any of the overlays. But I think kind of overall, staff is determining that kind of that master plan here has met its developable potential, and that, the constraints are kind of serving. I think for the urban renewal, like that could have a, financial impact based on those assessed values being included in it. I think there's other discussions for that, places for that, and then.
So there would be a small fiscal effect, but the reality really is that the overlays would constrain any attempt that we would do to do something that's riverfront adjacent. And so, as James says, we're really kind of already marching up to the edge of what's practical for the Esplanade, which will exist one day, we hope.
Then I support it.
Would you guys prefer, does it make any difference to you whether or not it stays in the urban renewal district boundaries?
It doesn't really matter to us as long as we can get in the county where we can build a couple houses.
Oh, James, that's certainly up to you, but it might be easier to leave them in the urban renewal district after they're de-annexed from the city, but yeah.
We can do that. They're not.
The original application had about 200 acres that were not in the city. And the only reason it got changed is because the county commissioners wanted the city then to go to a vote. City council chose not to, your city, that you were on. It had nothing to do with whether or not the land was actually in the city limits or not. So, thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering why you don't want to wait till August to find out if you can do a land swap. All right. Next item is our right-of-way and street closure ordinance changes. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Jeremiah Cromie, Associate Planner for the record. So I also have Brian Kershaw and Sergeant Ronning here for any questions as we go forward.
Good job.
Only minor spreads.
Only minor.
Everyone, we might close the street.
Go the wrong way. Other direction. All right. I'll get it right. All right. So back in 2025, as part of the Wednesday night market application that was submitted to the city, we ran into some issues regarding criteria used, and when the application went out for review by different departments, there was concern about a major collector street being closed in South College Street for police emergency routes. And so as part of that process, that permit got issued thanks to the city manager, but it caused us to review our current code and procedures and criteria for what is currently on hold. So with that, we convened a meeting with police, city administration, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, Capital Engineering, as well as a few others to go through that process of what our code currently has and what we need to have. So as part of that process and just who the final decision maker was, it's kind of unclear based on our code right now. There was some things that say the community development director. And so as part of those discussions we said, hey, the police are supposed to be the final decision maker for all non-construction street closures. So your special events, your parades, your block parties, anything that's basically closing the streets, as well as your temporary encroachments, your dumpsters, your storage containers. And then there really wasn't criteria in code for street closures and how those were handled currently. And so that came out that we need to have some standards for that. And then just cleaning up the existing code to include the right departmental staff for review, and then making sure the public and the correct departments are notified. So a part of those changes you'll see in your packet as are designated the chief of police or city engineer. So what we found as part of that process is that the chief of police, even though our code said they were supposed to issue that, it was actually Sergeant Ronning or Captain Ferguson or other people. So we're trying to make sure that we have the correct language in place for those, and then also making sure applications are submitted at a timely point to review. Currently, it's 15 days for like parade permits and other street closures to make sure we have time to review. And if there's other issues that might come up, that we have more additional time to review those. And then I mentioned the arterial and collector streets earlier. So we did leave a provision in there that says you can do it, but it has to be approved by the chief of police. So I'm not saying they're going to grant it, but that way it does have that for that final decision maker. And then I know there was some confusion from our code enforcement officer that we've run into issues with people leaving dumpsters and storage containers on the street for unlimited amounts of time or years. I had one case. And so we've cleaned that up as part of that. And the other thing that we also did as part of this, trying to just clean up Title 12 in our streets and sidewalks section, was to update the frontage improvement for compliance with 2658, last year's House bill, which just stated if you're doing a building permit currently, if you're doing $30,000 or more, that you have to put in the full sidewalk improvements, frontage improvements. In 2658, they said if you're just doing basically renovation and it's not more than $150,000, not changing the occupancy, you're not required to put in those improvements, but the city can still require right-of-way dedication and ADA requirements. And there's some other just cleanup language in the proposed bill.
Could I get you to pause right there for a
Sure.
minute? Thank you. I realize this is an ordinance, which makes it a legislative hearing. So I've got some things that I need to do here.
It's a work session, so you're fine.
This will be
Okay,
an
we're not
ordinance,
voting.
but.
Thank you. Go ahead, proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. So a little bit more on just the process changes. So all these event permits and parades are going to go into our OpenGov permitting system. And then we'll have multiple departments, including police, public works, maintenance, and capital engineering reviewing them. But it would be the police department with the final permit and just actually I'm back up one slide. So you'll see it under that police department page, and we're working with our permitting software to try and get a little bit cleaner. But what would happen is they'd submit, there's different criteria, and then they would have the different review people. So right now, Captain Ferguson's in here, but we also, as the review coordinator, but then we have capital engineering and public works maintenance also reviewing it, because if there's streets that are being worked on or going to be worked on, that they want to make sure that gets noted. And then once that's issued, we'll also create a distribution list that will go out to our public affairs officer, the other departments, TVFRs, traffic safety, as part of that process. So staff would like direction on just the proposed code amendments, any process improvements, anything you've heard from residents. And then also staff would like to know if there's any fees associated with street closure encroachments, because there currently are none. We double checked the master fee list with our master fee schedule update coming. There was a dance permit currently in there that I understand is gone, or they've not been charging. So it's written into the proposed language that you can set by resolution. You don't have to, but just something you may want to consider. And then just one other note on the street seats. So the one at like Ruddock and Wood, that policy is going to be reviewed in a separate council meeting that will come before you soon. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I mean, I heard the frustration of, college, but it's very understandable as to why we need this in place and that we need emergency services to be able to access major roads. So I support, if this is, this is the dream team, if this is the joint recommendation of the dream team, then I would support it. Just always keeping mindful that if one of the three of you leaves, it is really important to continue to work with businesses to make sure that we can do the events we want to do, but I trust the process right now and I would support it.
I am curious as to where are we going to have the Wednesday market this year then?
It's the same lot, just not on College Street. It's just on the gravel lot. So it's about probably half the size that it typically is, which was the frustration, understandably. But yeah.
I can verify that because I was part of the work detail that did the weeding and spread the gravel recently. So it is looking mighty fine.
I was going to basically agree with what's your name? Elise, but I do like the fact that the chief of police has the option, the final say if there's an exception to be made. Yeah, I'm kind of sad about the market being reduced in size, but I guess there's trade-offs with everything. I'm fine with no fees, but I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about why maybe we should consider adding fees for these events, like the market or.
That's a great question. It's kind of a council decision on that, since there's really no fees now. Said we had a $10 fee for dance, I think.
20 for 20 years.
For 20 years. So it's kind of up to council. It does take up some staff time. It's not terrible, but.
May I add something?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Director Siegel.
Yeah, so fees should be proportionate to the workload, the labor that's involved. And I think maybe historically, and I don't want to speak for Chief or Sergeant Ronning, the workload impact has not been that great that it's caused the staff to come forward and propose new fees. One might ask, well, with our automated permitting system, doesn't that streamline the process even more now that, so I would now defer it over to Sergeant Ronning if you feel that there's a workload concern that we should be recovering some of those costs. So that's how we would approach it generally, planning.
Well, with the new system, it remains to be seen because we're not on it yet, but that's the theory, is that will streamline things. quite a bit. And I think it'll also keep the other departments better informed of the way we do it. So I really don't have an input on what it'll look like because I haven't been able to try it yet. But that's the idea.
Are you gonna weigh in on it?
I think that we shouldn't charge fees for this particular thing because I think it's going to be a small amount of staff burden. And many of these things are going to do things that will make our community a happy, healthy, and a great place to grow.
I wanted to give you the opportunity to go on record. Let the record show that our staff is not recommending charging fees on this. Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you very much. I assume that this is coming back in the near future as an ordinance?
Yes, we'll come back before you as an ordinance for hearing and adoption.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is the Poysdorf Travel Diplomatic Mission Declaration Presentation.
Good evening. As you know, I'm Rachel Thomas, your city recorder, and I have a few things before you tonight. So basically, I'll be sitting here for a while. Looking forward to chatting with you. So why are we talking about Poysdorf again? Because I'm going to answer this question right off the bat because I know it's one of the questions that pops into your mind. This is just a procedural requirement to allow city officials to accept travel, lodging, food, and other arrangements without an ethics violation. That's all we're doing tonight. We're not debating it. We're nothing else. We're just saying, yes, this is actually an economic mission that we're going on. It's a fact-finding mission, and it is an approved thing. And that is the decision we're making tonight. This resolution gives council the authority to declare that diplomatic fact-finding and economic promotion travel. It allows you to approve that acceptance of payment for reasonable expenses and allows for acceptance of gifts in kind. So those are the small little trinkets that you receive and give back and forth when we go on these visits. So this is needed because some gifts can very clearly be accepted in ethics law, such as food, travel, and lodging, but only if you're representing the city, it's officially sanctioned, and it's for fact-finding or economic development. So my recommendation is to adopt this resolution to declare the 2026 Newberg delegation visit to Poysdorf, Austria as an officially sanctioned economic development trip and allow city officials to accept coverage of reasonable expenses. Any questions?
I was just gonna move the motion.
Yeah. We're doing a couple of things here, I think. One, we're going to authorize that the delegation visit to Poysdorf, Austria, but we're also appear to be setting a new way of doing business here. Up until this point, the city manager had the authority to determine whether or not an item was officially sanctioned. Since I've been mayor, I've been to 3 overnight conferences, League of Cities, Oregon Mayors Association, and so forth. The city manager, up till this point, has been able to designate that that is a city function. But because we had a discussion about the Poysdorf and some of the council indicated to the city that council wanted to take over the responsibility of determining whether or not other councilors went on a travel vacation, or it was called a vacation. So am I correct that we need to determine whether or not the council is going to reserve the right to determine what is a sanctioned event?
So the major difference I see between the two instances you're bringing up is that the travel for conferences and trainings is something that's already covered in the city budget by city funds. This is about accepting outside funds for travel. And that's the big difference here. Because that's something that's already approved in our manuals and all of the understandings of council as part of your compensation package that you can do travel and training on the city's funds, that's something that's already covered. This is a very different situation where it is an extra trip and is overseas, and we're accepting outside funds for people to go from the sister city organization. So I don't see them as the same thing. But I can see your point of view here.
I personally think that the Poysdorf trip is an important function for the city. I'm not sure that the rest of the council agrees with me on this. They never have in the past. I'm sorry? Okay, but the point I want to make is if this is something that's important for the city, then the city should be willing to spend the funds to do this, not force us to use another party to fund this trip. Whether or not the city wants to accept money from another entity is of course within the purview of the city manager. But I don't understand why we are bifurcating the Poysdorf trip. I mean, is this serious? If it's serious for the city, then the city should support it. If it's not something that the city thinks is important, then let's let the middle school take it over.
I agree. But I feel like I have consistently said that was my position. My position from the beginning was that I feel like we should support at least one person to be paid to go, not to be paid, for their travel expenses to be paid on behalf of the city. My preference is the mayor is the one that does that. I think where we got awry is, do we pay for the spouse of the person? And honestly, I'm not going to lose sleep over it if that's the case. I would like, though, for if we're opening this can of worms back up again, I am totally comfortable with the city paying for one city councilor to attend with one staff member as it was. And then I don't know if we need this for a spouse to be supported. I would love for the outside organization to support the spouse of the mayor to go on the trip as well. And that might be
And so for outside organizations, it's going to be their policy on who they invite and are willing to pay for. We would still need this for things such as our sister city often will pay for lodging in the location or food and drinks while you're there and things like that. So we would still need this resolution passed, even if the airfare costs are covered. So,
Yeah, except that, I mean, it does not have to be the council. It could be the city manager as well. And I am reticent to start micromanaging the city manager on items as small as what we're talking about. But just for the record, my wife is not going. She's never been planned on, she's never planned on. I understand. But that was a generous offer from the city manager, but we hadn't discussed that particular thing, and my wife is not intending to go. I would like to see more support from the city for this program. I think it's something that's important. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I don't know why we need to. I guess I kind of know why, because you're bringing it up, but it still seems like this could be something that Will should easily be able to do and not have it always be, maybe not always, but occasionally coming to the city council on whatever, economic trip that we decide to go on at some point in time. I don't want to just, I agree. I don't want to be micromanaging. And if this is something that Will can go ahead and do, I think I made a comment at the very beginning of the whole process, is that I was not comfortable paying for spouses. I think, city councilor should go, or the mayor, but I wasn't comfortable using taxpayer dollars to pay for a spouse to go. And I believe I made that statement publicly. So that was the only thing that I'm kind of up against. But I don't want to take something out of our city manager's hands when he could easily make that decision and kind of knows. We've already talked about this. I think he kind of knows the heart of what this council is kind of meaning along those lines. So.
Can I add one little detail? This is this is a practice that has happened before, to have council officially sanction the trip and allow the acceptance of gifts with past councils in the past. It's been a while since they've done this. It should have been happening for ethical coverage, but it did not. So that is one detail.
Gary?
So I think that was the piece that I think ditto to everything everybody has said. But James, didn't you say that we needed to do this from like a safety standpoint so that if some lovely lady in Poysdorf gives Bill $100 bottle of wine, he doesn't get in mayoral trouble for it? That's the difference, right?
Thank you, Councilor Jurgensen. That's right. So there's a distinction between kind of two topics that are being discussed here. One is the coverage piece as far as the acceptance of gifts so that electeds and city officials can avoid potential ethics law violations or S-244 violations. There's a separate question of the city's involvement as far as budget and funding, activities, be it Porsdorf or other sister cities coming to Newberg or what have you. I think the mechanics of implementing the program versus the coverage from an ethics standpoint are two different things. My understanding is what's before you is the latter of what I've explained, which is the ethics and safety piece, or the ethics and coverage piece.
So then I guess I agree. I think we as a council should be absolutely supporting this type of relationship and having it be an active component as much as the city is able to support, which is where I'm very grateful that there's an outside organization that also wants to help support. But protecting those who can go ethically, but leaving the power with you to also decide that it's important. Can we do both of those things at the same time?
So I think, first of all, and thank you for those clarifying remarks, James. So this is the piece which we do need to do just for the legalities of it, because there are small gifts and things that happen when you do these delegation exchanges, and it keeps us all clear. Secondly, I believe I'm hearing clearly from council that council is comfortable with assisting from the community support budget to make sure that we can have our delegate go to this event, not a spouse, we've discussed that. It's a delegate coming from council, the mayor being the most important delegate that we can send to meet with their mayor and all of the wine industry things. So I hear you loud and clear. And this also, though, provides us with what we need in the case of some sort of spurious claim that,
Yep.
So I accidentally already signed this docket, so I need you guys to vote unanimously to pass this. So would anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution 2026-4025, declaring the 2026 Newberg delegation visit to Toysdorf, Austria, an official sanctioned economic development trip, and allowing city officials to accept coverage of reasonable gifts, and also to allow the city manager to use at his discretion the ability to send a delegate from our council with expenses reasonably covered,
Second.
not first class.
never, never, and never, ever, ever. First class.
Business class.
I'll wait for you to quit writing there, Rachel.
Yeah, let me write it out quick. Got a star right on the
We
back.
never passed a resolution to direct the city on this. We just indicated to them that that was our wish. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. So whenever you're ready, Rachel.
Yep, I've got it.
All right.
Do we have a second? Okay, thank you.
So it has been moved and seconded that we
adopt resolution 2026-4025, declaring the 2026 Newberg delegation visit to Poysdorf, Austria, an officially sanctioned economic development trip, and allowing city officials to accept coverage of reasonable expenses, and allowing the city manager to use city funds to pay for reasonable expenses for one representative from city council to attend this trip.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, if there's any further discussion, go ahead, Will.
We call this transparency.
Yes, sir.
And many cities don't do things this ethically and transparently. And I'm very proud to be in this room.
So is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay? Phew, thank you, guys.
Can I say one more thing? And I just really want you to say thank you to you also, Mr. Mayor. I really wanted to say thank you to you also for engaging with the Poisdorf group and being willing to go on behalf of council. And it is a really, I think, important and big deal for us to send the mayor. So thank you for being willing to do it.
I truly believe that, 8 point something billion dollars into our state is an important industry. And considering that more wineries are in our zip code than any other zip code in the state, I really think that is the future of our city to support this industry. So thank you. Rachel, the next item is the election deadline codes change.
Oh, yes, you've got me again. And just so you know, I always have extra copies of the resolutions in case of any signature errors in the future. So I'm prepared, okay? We never need them. Bill and I get it right every time, right? All right. This item is an ordinance though, so I will ask you to open that if you want to approve it today, which I'd really appreciate. So you should all have the script in the binders that we've given you, and it is on page 27 of the council rules at the back.
All right, this hearing is to consider aligning council nomination filing deadlines with state law in accordance with House Bill 4024. I will open the hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing. Citizens will be able to testify in this issue by first, so I now declare this legislative hearing open. And now public comments are open. We have no public comments.
Nope. No.
So I'm going to close public comments. At this point, we need declarations of conflicts of interest or abstentions. If any council members wish to declare, this is the time to do that.
So you have no official conflict of interest because this won't make you any money. So you're okay.
And now it's time for your staff report. Thank you.
All right, this is a fairly straightforward one. House Bill 4024 that was passed last fall changed one little minor detail, which requires city incumbent elected officials to file 7 days earlier than any other deadline. So for non-incumbent. And so that makes your deadline 7 days earlier. Well, the city of Newberg in our code had a filing deadline for city council filings 80 days ahead of the general election. And when we then add that 7 days ahead of that, the filing time for incumbents becomes very, very short. And you're ending up filing almost a full month ahead of, it's 20 days ahead of the state filing deadlines. And it causes a lot of confusion. So I highly recommend just moving to adopt the state filing schedule instead of having our own filing schedules. So that is what I'm asking for tonight. I think it would cause a lot more clarity. Right now, we've already had issues on our website. You know, the county says one filing deadline and Newberg says another. And the county is trying to get all those in there so that people know that cities are not the same filing deadline. And I will still ask you all to file early because it makes everyone's lives easier. But it would make a lot of sense for us to align our filing deadlines with the state deadlines so that there aren't all these competing interests in there. So that is the staff report. It's a very simple process. If you want me to go over the dates, I certainly can.
So I was confused a bit when I was reading this ordinance. Are we going to have to do this for every election? Or are you going to word it in such a way that it's automatically will be at the right time?
Yeah, all it says is the ordinance itself, which is the code change, just says that we are now aligning with which is in the attachments, says that we are aligning with the state filing deadlines. So we won't ever have to do this again. This is just moving us to the state deadlines.
If there's no further discussion, would somebody like to make a motion?
Oh, what's the ordinance? I was just going. Or wait, it's not an ordinance, it's the code change, right?
Yeah, which is an
Okay.
ordinance. Yep.
Oh, what's the
Mhm.
ordinance number?
So this time, I think you've already done public testimony. So, and then it would be my recommendation, which you've heard, a recommendation to adopt this ordinance and deliberation. So
So now I'll open the floor for public, for council deliberation. Would anybody like to speak on this matter?
Yeah, so where is it?
If not, then we need somebody to make a motion.
I'll make a motion. Ordinance 2923, is that right? 2026-2943. To initiate the proposed changes to Newberg Municipal Code 2.05.060 to align election filing deadlines with the state of Oregon.
Second reading.
And waive that second reading.
thank you.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 2026-2943. Is there any further discussion? Seeing not, all in favor signify by saying
Oh.
aye.
We have to do a roll call vote for this
Oh,
one.
that's right.
Sorry about that. We haven't done one of these in a while.
Yeah,
You ready?
please.
All right. Counselor McBride,
Yes.
Counselor Wheatley,
Yes.
Counselor Yarnell Holloman,
Yes.
Counselor Kilberg,
Yes.
Mayor Rossacker,
Yes,
Counselor Ferguson.
Yes.
Thank you.
all right, our next motion or our next item. Do you want me to go ahead? I neglected to correct the document last time to add Counselor McBride to the ad hoc committee. So that's all we're doing now is voting to add Counselor McBride as the second counselor on that committee. So I will make a motion. So I will make a motion to add or approve the appointment of Counselor Mike McBride to the ad hoc committee on the River Street.
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, Mike's on the committee.
Perfect.
So last but not least, Rachel, you're
All
up
right.
again.
Yep. So Mayor Rossacker asked me to bring this back to you to look at the council rules again. There is a portion in there that talks about adding items to the agenda, adding new items to the agenda. And it says that a counselor, if they want to add an item to the agenda, can write and request it in writing, and the mayor will give a yes or no in writing. And if not, then they can bring it to a city council meeting and ask for it to be added to the agenda live that evening. And with the support of another counselor, it will be added to the agenda that night. Mayor Rossacker wanted me to bring this to your attention to consider the idea of adding it to future agenda so that it's not immediately added to the agenda that evening, with the intention of giving staff time to prepare information about that.
Jerry.
So I have a question, or maybe I think it makes really good sense. I think staff having time to prepare, if it's an important topic, we want you all to be prepared with the information. I guess the question I had is, I feel like we all communicate well and we have good intent, and I think this council does amazing. So I never think that you would do this, but hypothetically, I don't know, I have an idea and Robin agrees and she seconds it. There's already some level of disagreement because you would have said, or the mayor would have said, no, I don't want it on the agenda. There's not like a timeline. So like it will be added to the next agenda. So maybe some mayor could be like, sure, Jerry, I will add it December 24th, 2037. So do we want to include a timeline? Maybe that's like a very long way of saying, should it say to the next agenda, maybe?
Yeah, we discussed this the other day when we looked at that. I agree. That's the intention is not to table it forever, but to give staff enough time to get the proper people. So yes, let's let's do that. Robin?
What if there doesn't need to be staff time? It's just something that a simple discussion or an opinion or direction. I mean, you may not need staff time.
I think that well could be, but I think this takes the subjectivity out of it. It would always be the next council meeting. So we don't have to debate whether staff time is needed or not. It's just more clear.
The brilliant lady said what I was going to say.
To play devil's advocate, you might want to leave yourself room to say, except by council majority vote to have it tonight. Just in case there was a situation where something came up last minute, you really wanted to address it. It was very important. Just a thought.
Well, according to our old council rules, and I'm not sure if it changed with the new ones, the mayor had the ability to add anything to the meeting that he wants. So as long as I'm in agreement with what you want to do. Well,
why we're here. Because you said no.
well, but that, if you're, the one item you're talking about was a work session that we could not possibly have had on the very same night that we, no, and the request is not made at council. Yeah, that's what got us here, but, totally up to you guys. I don't think that we generally want to, spring new items at the meeting. I think that there's time to talk about them, with the city manager or myself and put them on the agenda. But I'll quit talking now and let you guys decide.
Mr. Mayor, I concur with what you just said. In the case of a true emergency, and unfortunately we've played this game a couple of times for real, we would undoubtedly call an emergency session first if we had a fire, a flood.
Okay, the only thing that I feel, and I want to be clear that this really hasn't happened, and we are, I feel, a very high functioning council, even in moments of disagreement. That said, in the case that there was something where the majority of council, meaning 4 out of 7 of us, felt like there was something urgent enough that had been being discussed, sorry to put you on the spot, but you disagreed, and that there were 4 of us that disagreed with you, I do think that we should be able to override you for what the 4 of us feel is an emergency in the moment. I think that's a hyper rare scenario. I don't see that happening really at all, but I think that we should be trying to create policy that is standing when we're gone. And there may not be a high function, this council 2 years from now or 4 years from now, et cetera. So I don't think we should be doing council rules amendments constantly. I think that we should play them out and see how our changes are feeling to the group. So I would prefer that it is next meeting or by majority of the council to add something to the agenda.
Yeah, let's, right. It sounds like we've got a couple things going on, with consensus. So who would like to make a motion? Elise, you just stated what you thought it should be. Why don't you?
No. So I make a motion that we accept the resolution to amending the council rules as amended by Elise.
I'll second it.
All right, it has, what's that? All right, we have a motion and a second. Please read the motion.
And the motion is to adopt Resolution 4026 with an amendment to require the meetings, items be added to the next meeting's agenda or that evening if a majority of council makes that decision.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Robin, you had something that you were going to report on today.
It was last year, I think the topic was brought up. Oh, actually, now I'm remembering. Yeah, the Safe Streets. I talked to Ron Wyden's field representative, and they mentioned that we could try to pave a gravel road. And we tried to apply for it last year. It's a grant. You apply for a grant through Ron Wyden, through this federally. And we tried it too late last year. So I put it in my phone when it opened again this year. And so it's open again. I sent Will the link to try to apply. He said that the city would try to apply. It's very competitive. But hey,
It's worth a shot though.
we would love to try to get some of these gravel roads paved.
I
So,
love it.
yeah.
So if I remember right, first of all, the neighborhood has to be considered blighted. And I think any neighborhood that has gravel streets and open ditches in Newberg should be considered blighted. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity to maybe get one of our gravel streets paved. I know that's something that's important to the entire council and the city manager. So thank you, Robin, for following up on that. And Will, I understand you don't have much time. It's somewhere near the end of the month that we have to apply.
I was already working on it.
We had a citizen, Linda McConnell or somebody on is it Sheridan or Sherman on East Side, that this would solve that issue for her if we could get that. Or
That's what jogged my memory is.
Once again, thank you, council, for doing your homework and coming to the meeting prepared. This is awesome. And to those of you visiting, thank you for sitting with us. And I hope we've been somewhat enjoyable. And I hope you're happy with the way that we take care of the city's business. So thank you. This meeting is adjourned.